Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Bridge Podcast. My name is Sammy Peters, and today I am with Kanta, and I am very excited to have to hear about what is, from what I've heard so far, a very inspiring story. If you
hmm
want to introduce yourself,
Sure. My name is Kanta Wadhwan. I have been in Canada, well, in Toronto actually, for 40 years now. And
okay,
so 40 years is has been a longer time than where I was
yeah,
born. I was born in Singapore and I left
right,
Singapore at the age of, 28 or so. So
okay, at 28.
yeah,
Okay,
28, 29. I can't remember. I think it was 28. Yeah.
so you must have seen a lot of changes in Toronto then.
Oh my God, have I? Yes.
Okay, I'm excited to
Well,
hear about those.
yeah. So and I yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'm a retired lawyer, and I was born in Singapore. You can tell me what you want to know, but I was born in Singapore. I grew up there. My family actually migrated. Well, not even migrated. They were refugees. My dad and mom were
Okay.
refugees from India
Oh,
because I'm
okay,
I'm East Indian,
okay,
and actually they left India during partition. In the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
1947
yeah.
partition,
Mhm.
when India and Pakistan were created,
Yeah,
my parents were actually in a province called Sindh province, which
okay,
was in Pakistan. So
yeah,
they being Hindus and not Muslims, they had to leave. They had to be
okay,
like they became refugees basically. Their lands were
right.
taken away, their home was no longer theirs
Hmm.
because all the Muslims were moving in, so they had to leave and go to India, the part that became India
So
actually.
your parents went from what was it? What was it called? The land in Pakistan?
Sindh
Sindh,
province,
Sindh
yeah.
province, and
Yes.
they went from there to India,
Yeah, they went to another part of India because Sindh province now became Pakistan.
Pakistan. Yeah.
Yeah, so they moved to Mumbai,
Okay.
where it was called Bombay at that
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they moved to Singapore.
Yeah, so once they got there
Yeah.
to Mumbai, to Bombay, they were basically looking for work, looking
Mhm.
for new lands. Like, what do we do now? Like, we've been totally uprooted from our
Yeah.
homes, from our agriculture. A lot of them, a lot of the so-called Sindhis, who
Hmm.
that's what I am,
Yeah.
had a lot of agricultural land. They were farmers, a lot of them. So they had no land
Okay.
anymore because they had to leave as refugees. They
Mm.
literally just took what was on their back. And so they decided, well, we have to be entrepreneurial. We have to start looking for
Inventive. Yeah.
new places to go to.
Okay.
So my father and his brother actually decided that they would move down to Southeast Asia, and
Okay.
then they came to Singapore. And my father and his brother
And
started looking for work in Singapore. And my father had just gotten married to my mother at
right.
that time.
Okay. And
So
why Singapore?
I
Is that
guess
just because there
it's
was work there,
yeah,
or
I guess it was a new country,
yeah?
Singapore in the 50s. By that time, for after 47, 48, 49,
Sure.
it was a land that was just opening up. So
Hmm.
for them, it was probably, well, this is a new land. We can be entrepreneurial and start.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
there was opportunity there.
yeah, opportunity
Okay.
probably. Yeah.
And so there's India and then there's Singapore. That's how long of a flight?
From
That's
from what?
from India to Singapore?
Oh, you mean in terms of how long of a flight? Well,
Yeah.
they didn't go by
I
plane.
was gonna say, yeah, the
Yeah.
distance is huge.
Yes, they
So
they actually came by ship.
okay.
Yeah, they had to get on a ship, and it took months for them to
Really?
get to Singapore.
Wow.
Yeah, now I don't have the whole
Yeah, of
story. I
course
know
not.
I
Yeah.
remember my dad actually telling us some of these stories
Mm.
when he was alive, and actually my mom is the one who uh, told us more of the stories, because my dad actually passed away at a very when I was very young. I was only 19 when my dad passed away. Um, so it was my mom who actually told us the stories about how they left and
Right.
came to Singapore, and how she had 6 children in Singapore, whilst my dad was struggling to start up a business, actually.
And then
Yeah.
you and all your siblings were born in Singapore.
We were all born
Okay.
in Singapore, all my siblings, my
So-
eldest sister, right through till my youngest.
So the youngest. Okay.
Yeah.
And you are the
I'm right in the middle.
Okay.
So I have 2 sisters ahead of me,
Mm.
older than me. I'm the third, and then I have a brother who's number 4, only one son,
Okay.
which was not a good thing at that time because the Indians love to have boys.
Yeah.
Like boys were
Sure.
going to carry the family on, right? But anyway, uh, and then I have 2 younger sisters
Okay.
as well, so
Okay.
that's 6 of us
Right.
altogether. And we are close. We are very close as siblings. I
Have
mean,
they
we're
moved?
all alive, and my parents have both passed on now.
Mm.
My mom passed away about 6 years ago, and yeah, so we still, we're
And
very
are
very
they in
close.
Toronto with you as well?
No, so my 2 sisters are in the US. They are in
Okay.
Houston. They live in Houston, Texas.
Right.
My 2 elder sisters, and
Okay.
then I'm in Canada. My brother and my youngest sister live in Singapore, and
Okay.
my middle sister, the second youngest, she lives in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the image I have of Singapore, and I've
Mhm.
never been,
Mhm.
it's only things that I've heard, is it's a very luxurious and clean country that basically can do no wrong. And I'd like to ask what it's like for someone who's grown up there. Uh, what Because I know nothing about the actual culture of Singapore and
Right.
what it's like being there. So what was that? What was it like growing up there?
So when we were there, when we were born there, and it started off as a lot of people from just like my parents. Singapore was a
Right.
new land
Yeah.
for discovery. So people came from different parts of the world to set up their lives there. So we had people coming from China,
Okay.
many families from China, people coming from India, from the southern part of India
Right.
primarily. They were called Tamils, the Tamil population. So they were there, and then the indigenous people of Singapore were the Malays. So we actually had 4 different cultures in Singapore.
Right.
We had the Europeans. These were because Singapore was a British colony. There was the founder of Singapore was Sir Stamford Raffles, who was
Okay.
actually a British businessman who came and
Put his flag.
put his
Put his
flag down, the
flagpole. Yeah.
British flag down,
Okay.
right? Before there was
Mm.
separation in, I think it was in the 1965. But
Okay.
anyway, so we had the people who were the British, so that we call them the Eurasians, because
Right.
they mingled a lot with the Asian people,
Mm.
and then had families and gave birth, so that these were the Eurasians.
Yeah.
And then we had the Tamil population, which was the majority of the so-called Indian population. Now we were North Indians, but most of the Indians that had migrated to Singapore were actually Tamils.
Okay.
And then we had the indigenous Malay population. And then we had the Chinese. There was a lot of different types of Chinese dialects, different sorts of Chinese from different parts of China coming into Singapore. So we were actually a very
Very cultural.
multicultural
Yeah.
society from the very beginning.
Right. Yeah.
And the prime minister, who actually after when the British left in 1965, our first prime minister was a Chinese. His name was Lee Kuan Yew, and he's a very, very famous man because he's the one who set the standards for Singapore and said
built it sort of.
built it. Yeah.
Okay.
And
so when you say, again, this might be a dumb or an ignorant question because I don't know
that's
much.
okay.
But when you say like the indigenous people, the Malay,
Yes.
how? Because here you're not like the way people talk about the indigenous people now. It's like with a lot of anger and bitterness towards people who came here centuries ago. So how integrated are they between what you saw and like your way of living and compared to like you would here or in America?
I would say that the Malays were not as prosperous as the Chinese.
Right.
Or the Indians, who eventually came and set up their businesses because they were much more entrepreneurial.
Right.
So the Malays had their land, but at the end of the day, they would be more the people who worked in they prepared the foods, they worked in the hawker centers, they were the house help, for example. for the Chinese or for the Indians who then, slowly prospered because they were not as entrepreneurial.
Sure.
But at the same time, there was never any doubt that because we were all a multicultural society, and the government did actually promote multiculturalism.
Right.
So when you went to school, for example, in Singapore, you could not just learn one language, which was English. You had to take a second language, and you had the choice. Now, do you want to learn Malay? Do you want to learn
And it was a choice
Chinese?
between the cultures that were there already.
That's right.
Okay.
Right. So for example, for me, when I went to school, I said, okay, I have to learn. So I had to learn Malay. I had to learn to speak the Malay language,
right.
Because that was like a second language. So
Sure.
the government encouraged everyone to pick a language and say that's your second language. Yeah.
Okay. And so you're born there. You have 5 siblings, and so your dad's brothers or your cousins as well, I assume?
Yes, I had many cousins who were much older than me.
Okay.
And actually we lived in an extended family. Like that was the way we lived. My dad and his brother and their wives and his mother. Actually, eventually his mother came from India too. And his sister who had her own family was also there. But we all my dad and his brother, we all lived in one home for the longest time before kids started growing up, and then we had to sort of separate and have two homes. But our cousins were my cousins were really like my brothers, because my dad's father had I think 6 kids as well. 4 sons and 2 daughters. So, and we were mostly girls, so we had only one boy. So our cousins were like our brothers.
Like your siblings,
like our siblings, exactly.
So then now, with like a lot of hindsight, I suppose you look back on your time in Singapore with like a lot of joy.
I do. I mean, it was fun because it was a time of innocence, right?
Yeah.
And you always felt protected because your brothers and your cousin brothers were always there looking after you. And because we kind of lived initially, we all lived in one house, and then we actually when my dad and his brother decided, well, we all have 6 kids now, we can't live in one house anymore. They both got what we called an apartment at that time, but they bought it in the same building. So my uncle lived on the 12th floor and we lived on the 6th floor. So
you're still together all the time?
We were, together all the time. So, every time after dinner in the evenings, for example, all of us would get together, and we lived in a fairly decent part of town, very close to walking distance to hawker centers in Singapore. I don't know whether you're familiar, but we have a lot of these hawker centers, and these are centers where people go to eat. It's very clean, very hygienic, because it's all regulated to very sanitary standards.
Yeah, but the whole country is like that, no?
That's right.
That's like one of the only facts I know about Singapore, is that it's a very clean country.
It's very clean, and people outdoor eating it's a very big thing there, and partly because of the weather too. It's hot and humid all year round in Singapore, so a lot of people enjoy eating outdoors, basically. So the people then decided they would set up these outdoor hawker centers where you'd have outdoor stalls and people be cooking outdoors. And then the people who come to eat, there's all these little tables, and you just order the food from here and here and here, and then go and sit on a table and eat it. And I don't know if you know, but Singapore is so well known for its food culture. No? Food is a big thing in Singapore.
Really?
Oh, yes.
I've never
because we have four cultures.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So, every culture has its own cuisines.
And then I guess a fusion is made between all 4 as well.
Right. And so people, that's the one thing, when I came to Toronto 40 years ago, that was the first thing I missed. I missed the fact that at that time, obviously, there was not a lot of multiculture. Right?
Really? At the time already there wasn't?
When I first came, there was not a lot of people that you would see of the way you would see them now. Oh, now you'd see, Caribbean, Ukrainian, Indians, Chinese, you just name it, Muslims, Afghans. No. When I first came, I didn't live in Toronto. We actually, my husband worked in Kingston, and I
Okay.
only came because my husband brought me here. I mean, I met him
Right.
in Asia. I kind of knew that he had a job in Canada, but I didn't know what Canada was
Sure.
all about.
Okay.
But one of the things I always feel like, okay, well, it's time for a new experience. It's time to
Mm.
take a bit of a risk.
Yeah.
So when he asked me, and our marriage was not one of a long term relationship before you got married. It was kind of arranged.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
arranged because our families knew each
Yeah.
other well in
In s-
India.
In India. Okay.
Yeah, and so my husband's family lived in Hong Kong. My family
Right.
lived in
Okay.
Singapore, but of course the different people who came from different parts into Asia, they kept in touch with
Okay.
each other.
How many times did you met him? Or like
I would say, well, first
seen him?
I got introduced to him
Yeah.
when I happened to be on a business trip to Hong Kong. I was a practicing lawyer at that time,
Okay.
and but he had already migrated to Canada because of the difficulties that people in Hong Kong were experiencing. So I actually met him 3 weeks. We got married. After being together for 3 weeks, and during that 3 week period, obviously we met each other quite
Yeah.
frequently. But yeah, it was 3 weeks, so it was very, very different from the way people, have relationships and get married now,
Typically,
right?
yeah. But okay, so before you moved to Canada, you spent a year in London, right?
Yes, I spent a year in London after I graduated from law school and worked in
Okay.
Singapore for, I would say, about a year and a half.
So you did law school in
I
Singapore.
did my law school in Singapore.
Okay.
And then and the way it works, the system in Singapore, it's not a postgraduate degree. It's actually right from high school, you go into law school.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I got into law school at the age of
It's a lot easier.
17, 18 was when we went into law school.
Okay, and then you could start being a lawyer by 22,
21, 22.
22.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you start working in the UK.
No, then I worked in Singapore.
Okay.
With an international the law firm that I worked for happened to be happened to have the lawyers there was working with some of the international work that was coming from other jurisdictions like Canada as well. So the law firm, I worked for the local arm of the firm that actually was an international firm, which was the firm that I then, when I moved to Canada, I had that connection, so I could easily connect to the people here, and then they gave me a job here.
Right. Okay.
So when I first came to Canada, so when we got married, my husband and I, and then I was just like coming to this new place called Canada. Never been here before, never knew what to expect, and this was
What had you
the
heard
month
about
of
it?
January. I mean, I had heard good things because
Okay.
one of the people that I did interact with during work, because we did work with this law firm, was a partner from the Canadian office. So and he was a very, very charming guy, and he always had good things to say about Canada and how beautiful it was and how great it was. So I had heard those things, but of course I'd never been there. But anyway, you wanted to know about England.
Yes.
So to pull the story back a little bit, after working for 2 years in the Singapore office, I decided to go to England to do my master's degree. I just wanted a change. I was still living at home with family, and that was one of the things, it's not like the Western society where when kids turn, you go to
18,
university,
they
they live out away. We always lived at home. So I think there came a point in time, even when I was working, I was still young. I mean, I was, 21,
still 22. Yeah.
Yeah.
Going to work for a law firm.
And I decided I needed to get away. By that time, my father had passed away as well. And I had when my father passed away, because I was the lawyer in the family, I kind of had to handle a lot of the legal stuff that happened, like his estate, and making sure that, we read his will and stuff like that. Anyway, so then I told my mom, I just need a break. I need to go away. And what was the best way to do this? I couldn't just tell her I'm going to leave. I
Yeah.
said, "Oh, I'm going to do I'm going to do a master's degree."
Okay.
So I
So
went
you
off
didn't
to the UK.
necessarily want to do the masters, but it
No, it
was
wasn't. I mean, she's passed now, bless her. But yeah, it was a way to get out
yeah,
of
yeah,
living at home as well,
and
because
independence.
and be a little bit more
Yeah.
independent. And so yeah, I left. I had a very close friend at work who also got married and moved to the UK. So she encouraged me a lot. She used to say, come to the UK
Mm.
and you can come and live with me for a little while, and
Okay.
then you can find a place. So
Yeah.
anyway, I went, and the plan was to just go for a year.
And what was there a culture shock when you went to the UK?
Um, it was obviously the
Yeah.
culture shock was the fact that obviously I had this one friend, but I had really no one else. I
Yeah.
didn't have my
Well,
extended
yeah. So I
family.
suppose if you go from having a lot of cousins that you're with all the time, and then a lot of
Siblings,
siblings.
cousins, mom cooking for you at
Yeah.
home and all that. And now you
Yeah.
had to like literally look up fend for yourself kind of thing, right? Um
And in terms of just like the people, was there any like a
no,
difference that
actually
you noticed?
no. I mean, the people were actually very good to me.
Right.
I got introduced to a lot of my friends'
Yeah.
friends, so they were good to me. And then eventually I met a woman who actually had a room in her little flat, which was very central to the university, and she actually allowed me to stay there.
Okay.
I mean, I paid her a minimal amount
Yeah.
of rent, but I was able to find a nice little room in a nice apartment in a nice flat, and
Okay.
then that's how it all started. And but I only spent 1 year. After 1 year, I knew I had to go back. I actually tried to look for a job in the UK because I loved it so much. I loved
Yeah. I
being,
was.
eventually you
Yeah.
get kind of like this
You
independent
get into your
style.
routine, and yeah, I was gonna ask, was the plan to go back to Singapore right
Well,
away, or
I tried hard to look for a job, but
Mm,
it wasn't that easy at
sure.
that time. So then I decided to go back, and I went back, and of course by that time I had kind of tasted the life of
Hmm.
independence and a
So,
different
yeah,
life, and so I
yeah,
thought, oh my God, like, oh, I would go back and live with my family again, and Singapore, living in Singapore was not, it has never been cheap. Housing is extremely like living, unless you get into public housing, it's not cheap to find a place to live. It's like Toronto now,
yeah.
but anyway, so then my mom kind of said to me, well, there's this family friend, and they have a son who lives in Hong Kong. I went back to work, obviously, and she said, why don't you, you're going on a business trip to Hong Kong, why don't you just meet up with him?
Very smooth, very smooth.
And so I did, and I met up with him, and I kind of liked him. But at the same time, it was like, oh, am I going to get into this arranged marriage style, So,
Yeah. What were your feelings about that?
well,
Like, how was it introduced to you? The
um,
idea of getting married.
well, I did, of course, have a boyfriend in university. Unfortunately, that
Mm,
relationship broke after we separated and went our ways. We
sure.
both finished university.
Mhm.
So I guess I was kind of open to
Mm,
trying something different, because I hadn't really found somebody in the UK either. It was
yeah.
just too short, 1 year.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I kind of said, okay, I'm kind of open to it. So I
Mm.
opened to it, liked him, I liked the family. I thought, why not? And I'm going to a new
And then
country.
you
I
moved
have
to
to,
Canada.
I yeah, and a new country. Let's
Mm,
try it. Let's take this little risk and go. And
mm.
so we went.
Mm. And
We came.
through the law firm that you were working for, you could start working already in Canada.
Yes. No,
Okay.
so no, it wasn't as
As
simple
simple as
as,
that,
oh,
no?
I come to Canada and I got a job.
Okay.
Then I did make the connections. So as I said, my husband worked in Kingston.
Yeah.
He didn't even work in Toronto, and the law firm that I worked with, which was Baker McKenzie, was in Toronto. So when I first got there, I said to him, well, what am I going to do here? It's like, there's nothing here. It's a small town, Kingston. It was January. It was
Cold.
freezing cold. There was snow on the
Had
ground,
you
and I
ever had you
never
ever
seen
seen
snow,
snow? Yeah.
never seen snow. So it was, typical immigrant story. Anyway, yeah. So I did contact them though, because I felt like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I really need to get a job. And they said, okay, come to Toronto and we'll give you we'll talk to you, we'll interview you, we'll see if there's something that we can give you. So then I did go one weekend. One week I took a train from Kingston and I went to Toronto. My husband had a friend in Toronto who was willing to put me up for a couple of days.
Nice.
I met with them and they said, okay, we'll give you a job. We'll start from the bottom. We know you're a lawyer, but here you're not a lawyer.
Right.
And then, but you can start from, start as a student. We'll give you some work to do.
How did it feel going from being a full-fledged lawyer to then
It was
moving
tough.
here and then
It was tough because you suddenly become someone who is unknown to the people who are working in the firm, and you've got to start. You know that you've got to start from scratch, right? But I was willing to do that. The funny thing was, then I said to my husband after I got offered the position as a student, as like an intern student. I said, I've been offered a job, so I think I have to move to Toronto. And he said, huh? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, we've just been married for, less than 2 months. And so I said, yeah, we'll just meet on weekends, but I do really need this job because I got to start. So we actually, his friend was kind enough to, it's she, and she had a room in her apartment on Avenue Road, actually.
Okay.
And so she allowed me to stay at her place Monday to Friday, and then on the weekend I would just take the train and go back to Kingston and spend. So it was a long distance relationship. But at the same time, I did find out, obviously, that I had to get requalified to be able to practice law in Ontario. So it was not as simple as coming here and working. If I wanted to be a full-fledged lawyer, I had to go. I called the law society and they said, "Oh, you're what degrees do you have?" And I told them, "Oh yeah, I have a degree from the UK." "Oh yeah, but you don't have any Canadian experience, so you need to if you want to get called to the bar and practice as a lawyer here, you need to go back to law school," is what they told me. So I had to make that decision. Like, okay, I have to go back to law school. And then they told me
do it all again.
Not for 3 years, but for 1 year. So they said, you need to get, they called the Canadian legal side of things. So, practice certain like constitutional law and income tax law, corporate law, that kind
know
of
everything
thing.
from the Canadian perspective.
From the Canadian perspective. So then because...
So is this also during as you restarted at the...
Yes. So what I did was I worked for one summer there. So I started, I think I came in January. So by the time I started with them, it was March.
Okay.
I started applying. So because my husband was in Kingston, I said I would apply to Queen's University to see if I could get a position, like get a spot there. So I was able to do that. I was very fortunate. So Queen's agreed to take me on for the 1 year to do these certain courses. So when the fall came in September, I actually left. I told the law firm I'm going back. I'm going to go to Queen's, and I did that. So they said, okay, when you're finished, will come. We'll hold a spot for you. But the law society had already told me it was not just doing 1 year in law school. I had to redo my articles. I had to do my bar admission courses again. So pretty much it took me 3 years.
It took you 3 years
to requalify to get called to the bar in Ontario.
And there was not a moment where you were like, where you maybe considered doing something else.
Well, there were many moments, but I had to push through, because that's really what I've always, from day one when I got admitted to law school in Singapore, it was my dream come true. I'd always wanted to be a lawyer. So I said to myself, okay, it's 3 years of my life. Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So I did my 1 year at Queen's. It was a great year. I had an amazing time. Well, I was back with my husband too. That was good too. We were living back together again. And I made so many friends in that 1 year.
People usually have fun at Queen's.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great university. And then when the 1 year was over, I had to go back to Toronto because that was where the law
Yeah.
firm that I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
working with was prepared to offer me an articling position. So my husband then decided that he would quit his job and move to Toronto as well and
Okay.
look for something new to do.
Okay.
So we both then moved to Toronto. Luckily enough, we were able to find a small little apartment at Bathurst and Eglinton, a little
Okay.
one-bedroom
All right.
apartment. And then that's how we started. My husband then started to look for new opportunities.
Yeah.
My husband comes from a very entrepreneurial family, so so in as much as he worked as a mechanical engineer, his family had a lot of entrepreneurial background.
Yeah.
So he was able to find, him and his brother decided that they would do something together, and they started a small business together,
Okay.
which eventually they grew.
And it led to.
Yeah, and everything worked out well. But I had to work very hard. I
Yeah.
had to go to law school, go back to law school, and then do my articles again, which pretty much meant starting from
Because
bottom.
articles in law school means.
Articles are with the law firm. So
Okay.
once you finish law school,
Right.
in order to get called to become a lawyer in the province, you have to article under somewhat like a mentor, right?
Okay.
So they call it a principal.
Okay.
So one of the lawyers in the law firm that I worked with had to be my principal,
Right.
kind of mentor me, guide me,
Okay.
and teach me as to what
So
the
like sort of
practice
an
of law.
apprenticeship.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then so it took you about 3 years to get back
Took me
to.
3 years altogether to get called, and that was one of the greatest moments of my life.
Yeah.
Was when I got called to the Ontario bar.
Yeah.
in
That
this-
must have been very rewarding.
It was because I was thinking, wow, now I'm called not just to the Singapore bar, but I'm now also called to the Ontario bar.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was good, and then I had to work my way up. It was not easy because you're an unknown quantity. They thought, oh, this lawyer from Singapore, what does she know?
Yeah.
So I really had to work my way up. But I was willing to learn.
So what did you have to do to sort of prove that you were at that level and wanted to.
Well, I worked with a lot of associates and partners in the firm, and so I pretty much did anything and everything that they wanted me to do. It was learning for me too because I had, all the lawyers in the firm were a lot more older because in Canada, law is
Yeah.
the lawyers
Yeah.
are doing a postgrad.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
the
postgraduate.
undergrad and
Yes,
then,
it's
yeah.
not an undergrad.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
was much younger. But yeah, so I started from scratch, learned everything. I did also get a lot of good opportunities because when I started off, I worked with a very senior lawyer who actually is a very good friend of mine now. She's retired and I'm
Okay.
retired, but we're both very good friends. And she mentored me. She taught me. She was a she is, I would say, very smart lawyer, although she's retired from law now. But she taught me everything that she knew about the different aspects of
Yeah.
commercial and corporate law, which is what I did, and mergers and acquisitions, which is another area that I started working in. And so I learned that. And then there was one lawyer who went on maternity leave, and unfortunately she couldn't come back after her maternity period ended because her child was a little bit disabled. So she decided she wasn't going to come back. So I took over her practice, which was actually a commercial regulatory practice. And this mentor of mine, the woman lawyer who was the senior partner, said to me, you can do this, you can take over this practice. So I did. And so I took over that practice and worked in that area and started developing a specialty in that area.
Okay. And were there any like major differences that surprised you in the law system in Canada compared to in Singapore or in Hong Kong or what you were used to?
Well, I think the difference was that I think I was too junior in Singapore in terms of the practice of law, right? But I think the major difference is the way that because people are much more mature here when they start practicing law as graduates. I found that people here were a lot more curious and they were very
Okay.
open. They were quite open to asking questions. When we are in meetings, everybody talked, everybody asked questions,
Yeah.
everybody wanted to know how this worked and that worked. In Singapore, that never used to happen. We were very, very much like, oh,
There's more of a hierarchy.
yes,
Like
yes, exactly.
Okay.
You're there at the bottom of the hierarchy, and yeah, you just listen to what
So you just shut
the
up and
senior
listen,
partner says
yeah.
and do what he tells you. Whereas I realized that in the environment I was in, people were a lot more open
Right.
to working collaboratively together and asking questions, and
Sure.
never hesitate to ask and challenge when they had to, which was great, right?
Yeah.
But for someone who had never been ingrained into that environment, it was not an easy
Yeah.
thing to do.
Did it take time for you to get to that point where
It
you
did.
felt
It
like
did.
you could ask questions?
And I mean, I'm still a fairly introverted person, so I know that I think well and I worked well and I worked very, very hard. I
Mhm.
like long hours and stuff. But at the same time, yes, I eventually realized that I had to open up and I had to be like them in order to be treated like eventually a partner, because I did make it to partnership in the law firm. I would have to be a team leader. I would have to have juniors that were working under
Yeah.
me. So I had to be the one that could, just be the leader and
Right.
work collaboratively with the lawyers and be aggressive, because I was dealing with major clients,
Yeah, I think especially in
fairly
commercial
corporate,
and
corporate
corporate law.
clients, and
Mm.
the firm was an international firm, and then eventually I had to deal with a lot of American lawyers as well, because many of the lawyers in the firm were all from different parts of the world, and their clients were,
That- I think this is an appropriate question given the current times,
yes,
but is there a
yeah.
big difference between the American lawyers and the Canadian
Oh,
lawyers?
yes.
Yeah,
They're,
really?
they're a lot more aggressive.
The American ones?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, at least from my experience,
right.
they were, they wanted everything yesterday. Whereas I found that at least the Canadian lawyers were more understanding of
Okay.
work-life balance a little bit. Not the Americans. For them, there was no such thing as a work-life balance.
Okay. And so what were your impressions of Toronto? Like outside of work, obviously it was a time where you had to really focus on what you were doing, but in terms of the city itself, what were your impressions? The
So
people,
yeah, so when I first came, as I mentioned to you, I didn't really
it
see
wasn't
a
the
lot of
same as it
color,
is now. Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's such a different place now. I used to crave, sort of good Indian food.
Mm.
I could never find
There's
it. There was one Indian restaurant
Really?
on the Danforth that I remember my husband and I used to go to a lot at that
Okay.
time. And that was our like treat,
Yeah.
we're gonna eat Indian food outside kind of thing. And of course there was no Singaporean food, because Singaporean food is quite different, right?
Yeah. I can't say I've seen a Singaporean food restaurant here still.
Oh, there are now.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Do you have any
Yeah.
recommendations?
Sure, I do. Yeah. Soos. Have you heard of Soos?
No.
Soos.
No. Where is it?
They're Malaysian on Ossington.
Okay.
They're Malaysian Singaporean restaurant, and they do. And then there's another one on College called Kiss My Pants. Have you heard of
No,
Kiss
I've
My
not heard of
Pants?
that one. No.
And they do some Singaporean
Okay.
food too.
I'll write it down.
Yeah.
But it's weird to think of Toronto. It's weird to think that Toronto was ever a place where there wasn't much multiculturalism.
That's true.
I
Right?
moved here 7 years ago, and that's
7 years ago?
and
Oh.
that's the only thing I've seen. Like that was the first thing I noticed when I moved to Toronto. Just the fact that you get to meet all these different people from different places and have conversations and learn about so many different cultures.
Well, absolutely. And
Yeah.
that has been a huge change, but I think it wasn't like that 40 years ago. I mean, you hardly saw someone from another sort of color, like
Yeah.
especially brown people. Now there's brown people everywhere. You walk everywhere and you see nothing but brown people. Yeah, lots of Indians now, right?
Yeah.
But not just Indians. I mean, we have people from the Ukraine, we have
Yeah.
Eastern Europeans.
Well, if I take my friend group, it's different because we're in university, so it is a more international setting. But even just my friend group when I was in high school, it was just maybe two of them were born in Canada, and the rest we were all from all
from
over all over the
different
place.
parts
Yeah,
of the world,
yeah,
different communities.
yeah. And I think that's why it makes Toronto very special because everyone's from a different place, but you sort of all relate in the fact that you are from a different place. So you
Right.
all have that shared experience of either moving or
Correct.
your parents having moved.
Right. And isn't that great? Because it
Yeah,
creates for so much
yeah, yeah.
diversity, right? And an exposure to
Mm,
all these different cultures. And
for sure.
I would say that now that I look at Toronto particularly, this is a true multicultural
Yeah.
community and society.
Mm,
I mean, where we were in Singapore, it was more contrived because the government wanted us to learn another language
yeah.
or in as much as we made friends because we were friends from all these different races and communities,
Hmm.
and then we enjoyed each other's food, we enjoyed each other's cultures, festivals, that kind of thing as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. I think especially the food and the festivals, it gives you another sense of appreciation for
Yes,
sure.
yes.
And where even though it was a place where there wasn't many diverse people, how, what were people like towards you at the time?
I have never had a problem with people here. People have always been
Hospitable?
kind to me,
Mm, okay.
kind, hospitable, open to teaching,
Right.
because I guess a lot of them knew that I was coming from, so far
Yeah.
away,
Yeah.
basically. No family here,
Mm,
absolutely no family here.
mm,
And so, I mean, I've always found that the people here have really been very supportive of
mm.
helping bring you up,
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
So.
And have you been able to go back to Singapore since you left?
Oh yeah, I've been
Yeah.
back many times.
Have you ever considered moving back?
I did. After I retired, I kind of thought, oh, it'd be nice to go back because I have many of my cousins are still there.
Mm,
My two of my siblings, three of my siblings, one's in Malaysia, but close enough, right? But you know what? I can't because, for one thing, the weather does not agree with me anymore. I kind of
there.
prefer the cold to the heat there. You
That's
know,
that's very surprising.
it's very humid there,
Okay.
and there's no seasons. I
It's
think
just that all
it's
the time.
just that hot,
Okay.
humid, kind of rainy all
Yeah.
the time, right? And having come here and experienced the four
Mm,
seasons, and I'm seeing the changes, especially in nature in each season, I think you
sure.
kind of learn to appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one thing for sure. If you live in a country that goes from very cold to very warm, like here, you appreciate both a
Yes,
lot more.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm,
So yeah, I went. I actually was. I spent 3 months. My husband and I traveled to Asia last year
okay.
because he retired last year,
Okay.
and so we went for 3 months and we said, okay, let's explore. My husband was also going back to Hong Kong, and my husband had gone to school in the Philippines, so he
Right.
wanted to go back to his boyhood school and see what that
Yeah.
looked like as well, and wanted me to see it as well.
Mm,
So yeah, we did, but we both decided that Canada was now home.
that was it for you.
Yeah.
And your children are born here
My
as well.
children are born
Have
here.
they gone? Have they gone to Singapore?
Yep. Both
Okay.
of them they've gone to Singapore, and they like it there, but they would
That's
never,
not
I
fun.
don't think they would
Yeah.
live there. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Would you recommend Singapore to just like me, for example, if you're a
As
tourist?
to visit
Yeah.
or to go work or
To
to
visit, to
live?
visit, to visit, to
Oh,
visit.
absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely a place worth visiting. If nothing else, is for the food because there's such a wide variety of food. It's
Right.
foodie world, basically.
So two questions that I've sort of asked each guest that has been here is what do you think is a potential like what do you think could potentially harm my generation from your perspective in the future, and what do you think is something that we have to look forward to uh, again from your perspective?
Well,
So we'll start with
I
the
guess what would
first.
harm your generation? Um, I think we lived in a world where family and community was a lot stronger. I find that with social media and with everybody having their private cell
Yeah.
phones and having, there's a lot more isolation, and I find that it's not as the way, that there isn't that cohesiveness, because people tend to be living in
In their own
these
bubble. And,
worlds on their own, and there seems to be a lot of issues there. Technology has its good side, but I think it's
yeah.
also got its bad side, right?
Do you think there was, well, I assume so, but was there a lot more sense of community even in Toronto when you first came compared to now? Because I
Um,
think it's different if you're in a big city. I think the sense of community is different if you're in a big city compared to if you're in a town or
I guess so.
in
That's
a
true.
village somewhere else. But
No, it was not like that when I first came. I mean, we did have to find our friends. We did have to make new friends,
right.
because in Singapore it was easy. I went to school there. I grew up. I went to law school. These were all my friends, and so that was a ready-made sort of community. Whereas here it wasn't. But I think it's not difficult, because people here are really friendly, kind,
That's true.
supportive. So, as you say, you go to school and you find, and
Yeah.
especially if people are now coming from so many different parts of the world, they're all looking for a community
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a lot easier. But I mean, there's a lot of things that I mean, I think in today's generation, you've got so many things that you have to be wary of and think, like, for example, what's happening with the environment and climate
Yeah.
change. We really have to be, very conscious of
It's
that.
very scary.
Yeah.
It's a very
I
scary
mean,
topic.
all these wildfires and
Yeah.
floods, and that's a big thing that I
Mhm.
think it's we have to be so mindful of. And I think technology, misinformation, because there's just so much data that is being thrown at
Yeah.
us from all these different
It's hard to like
angles,
filter
right?
and yeah.
Yeah, learning how to filter it and making sure that you're using it to your good, as
Mm.
opposed to getting caught up in it, and then it doesn't help you. And with all these online predators and stuff,
Yeah.
it's really difficult, I think.
Okay.
So I think that those are, for me, those are the two that really one has to really have to be
Right.
wary of. Yeah.
And what do you think we have to look forward to from what you've seen?
What we have to look forward to?
Yeah.
I think you have to look forward to a future where there's hope. Hope is important. And I think the fact that we have such a diverse set of people here
Mhm.
who are all looking for the same thing, right? They're all looking to set up a new life. Many of whom are immigrants, and they're coming from different parts of the world, many escaping, not good things, but bad
Yeah.
things as well, and coming here.
For sure.
And I think everyone's willing to sort of be together to say, let's really build a society that's great. I mean, look at the way Canadians have suddenly come together,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
a result of our friend,
In the
down south,
south.
right?
Yeah.
And
It's true. I've never seen
have we ever
Canadians
seen
so
that?
no,
I mean, look
never.
at how people have just stood up and said,
All of a
"Hey,
sudden, and it
yeah,"
was like
and
this.
it's just like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And the fact that so many people are just saying, "Oh yes, I mean, we don't want to travel to the U.S. We
Mm.
want support Canada. Let's support the small businesses in Canada." Isn't that something
Yeah.
to just be proud of,
For
and to
sure.
say, well, if this is what my country and my community is all
Yeah.
about, then there's a lot of
It's
hope,
something to be
because
proud
we
of. Yeah.
yes we can stand
Mm.
together. So I
Yeah.
think that has been the shining ray of positivity and light in the midst of all this
Finding
uncertainty
unity
and
and
and and
mm.
and bad news that we get bombarded with every day, and this
Yeah.
uncertainty. Of course, the economy, how we survive as a result of all these changes is something that we have to think about. But I think as a society, we are a hopeful and positive society, and we will come through it. I'm pretty positive about that.
I hope so. I hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And so in the questionnaire that I sent before this episode, there was a question that asked why you're happy to do this, why you'd like to film this episode, and you said you'd hope to sort of inspire and educate young immigrants here who might be starting to look to develop their career or come here for better opportunities. What advice would you give those people? I think that there's a lot of pressure when you move to a certain country and a lot of expectations. And now I wouldn't say it's very, there's zero guarantee when you move here. So what would you, what advice would you
I
have for
would say
them?
don't give up hope, because there are people like me out there who are here to help you, to support you, right? I mean, I've because so many of us have come through
Yeah.
those what should I say, challenges.
Mm.
But if we can be resilient, because I think resilience is extremely important. Adaptability, flexibility, resilience. Those are three qualities I would say to anybody who's coming in, as a new immigrant or as a new lawyer coming to
Right.
requalify. If you can be open-minded, flexible, adaptable, and be positive, I think there's lots and lots of opportunities. I saw it myself, right? I came here with nothing. I tell my children this all the time. This is the lesson I always say to them. Your dad and I, when we came here with one suitcase each, and that was it. And well, now we have a home.
Yeah.
We've taken you guys through school. We've helped you buy, your own little homes
Yeah.
as well. And I mean, how did all of that happen? It really happened because we were supported, we were hopeful, and we were positive, and we had people around us who really we felt were there for us, and these were, many of them were our friends more than anything else.
Yeah, and I think Canada is like probably the perfect place, especially at the time, I think, to build that.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. And then the fact is that, we have free healthcare, we have free
Yeah.
education. It might not be the most perfect, but
No,
at
there's
the end of
definitely
the
a lot of
day,
flaws for
yeah,
sure.
at the end of the day,
Mm.
it's still there for us,
Mm.
and it's those two pillars that are so important to people when they come here,
Yeah.
with education and health, and so I think that those are very, very important factors: resilience, adaptability, and flexibility.
Okay. And unless you have anything else that you'd like to bring up, I think we'll wrap it up there. I think that's a very good point to leave it on.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can say is there will be challenges, but always look on the positive side. Always look and be positive, because if you lean towards being positive, good things, positive things will come to
Right.
you. You attract what you focus on. If
Mm.
you focus on the negative, that's what you attract. If you focus on the positive, then you get the positive. So that's what I say. And I've seen it myself, and so many other friends who've all come in here with very little, and who all
Yeah.
made successes of themselves as well.
All right. Well, Ganta, thank you very, very much for all
You're
your time.
welcome. Thank you for having me and for listening to my viewpoint.
Yeah, no, I was very happy to hear it. I was very happy. It's very inspiring, and I hope you enjoyed.
No, it was good. It was good
All
fun.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.